This is a symmetry question. It's one of those ones that tests the tenses of the verbs. And if you watch other videos where I've talked about this rule, you know that what we're always trying to do is look for something else in the passage that is the exact same tense, right? So it's not that we're just picking the tense based on context. Almost always what we're doing is we are finding some sort of symmetry, some sort of pattern in the sentence, in the paragraph that lets us pick the right tense, that just forces us to pick it. This is an exception, a very rare exception. So I can't think of another question that does exactly what this one is doing. But there is no other piece of this that's going to tell us what the right tense is. So if we look at the sentence, it's kind of short. From its beginning, the movement had opposed the standardization of taste that fast food chains promote. Well, there's no other verb really here to match with. It's just kind of like a one idea kind of sentence. Usually there's multiple ideas and we can kind of find the pattern between them. So we would continue reading. We would see, is there anything else that clues us in? For example, a McDonald's hamburger made in Boston tastes more or less the same as one made in Beijing. This consistency is made possible by industrial mass production. Slow food supporters, by contrast, back methods of growing and preparing food based on regional culinary traditions. When produced using traditional methods, goat cheese made in France tastes different from goat cheese made in Vermont. So there's some other verbs, and they're all kind of talking about the past tense. They're not, the present tense. They're not talking about the past. They're talking about something that's going on right now, the way that this slow food movement thinks, the state of the world, the state of fast food, the state of food in general. It's very much a present kind of situation. So that should help us get rid of two choices. C, it's not about the future. It's something that they oppose right now. It's also not something about the past. It's not that they had opposed it, but don't oppose it anymore. And that's what A suggests, is this is the past and this is the future, but what we want is the present. That's what all these other verbs are. And so that might lead me to choice B, which is also the present tense. From its beginning, the movement opposes the standardization of taste that fast food chains promote. The reason that it can't be B is just this phrase here. If we did not have that, I would say that B is the answer, right? So if the paragraph just began, the movement opposes the standardization of taste that fast food chains promote. For example, a McDonald's hamburger made in Boston tastes more or less the same as one made in Beijing. Honestly, if that were the case, if that first phrase weren't there, I would say that B is the answer. However, that first phrase changes things because it uses a tense that we don't often think about. It's basically like a past and a present combined. And that's kind of what's going on here. So let's do this. Present, and this is past present. And so I don't want to get too much into grammar. This is the challenge with symmetry questions, is there's always this temptation to start talking about all the different tenses, and I don't think that that's helpful. Basically, what happens with this word has is it lets us convey the idea that something started in the past and has continued into the future, or into the present. So in this case, when they say from its beginning, we're talking about a moment in the past. And so there was a moment in the past where the movement opposed the standardization. And today, the movement still opposes the standardization of taste. So past, present. But this tense lets us bridge that gap and say that it's not something that happened at one point in the past and at this point in the present. It's something that happened all throughout this history of this movement, right? It is a continuous thing that started in the past and continues to the present day. From its beginning, the movement has opposed the standardization of taste. So that is when we use this particular tense. Normally on symmetry questions, this wouldn't be so hard because we would find some other part of the sentence that also uses the word has, and so we'd be able to match it up and say, oh yeah, it's right because they're both following this pattern. That's why I said this is an exception, is there is nothing else really that proves this tense for us other than the context and the ideas, and that's rare. The SAT does not usually do that. So if you get it wrong, I wouldn't worry about it. The odds of this specific situation coming up again are very slim, but maybe hopefully now you learned a little bit about these different tenses in English, and and when we might use them. But normally you won't need to think this deeply. You'll just be able to point to something and say, that's the right tense, and get your 10 points and move on. So unfortunately, sometimes exceptions happen. It's just the SAT.